Hello there everybody and welcome back to Memory Gamma. Today, as you can see, it's a different sort of video. I'm going to start doing a series like this, but I'll explain about it and a little bit about why I've started it now. So, this video goes live on June the 1st, which is in the Fremont Reformation known as David's Day. David's Day is named in honour of David Montgomery, one of the founder members of the Fremont Reformation and one of the big players in the game itself from its inception. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, much too early, and he is still greatly missed by all of those who were part of the game and knew him. He is actually the reason why I am a member of the Fremont Reformation and why I am so heavily involved. I had been playing the game for many years before I met him and started talking to him. Obviously not in person. He was based in America. I am based over in the United Kingdom. But we had several chats. There are several videos on his YouTube channel, Brush Up Your Game. Some of them are interviews with other members of the community, myself included. There are missions, a couple of them I played against him and they are on his channel. And he went into a lot of depth. He did a lot of, or all of the reviews. So as a new pack came out, he would get it and review it based on the abilities, the upgrades, and give you his opinions on where they stood. As he did all the way through up to the end and the mode and the faction packs that came out just before he passed away. He was also in the process of doing a re-review of all of the packs to see how they stood up years later. Unfortunately, he said he passed away before he was able to complete that work, but they were finished off by another member of the community. So, as my tribute to him, I am going to start doing my own series of randoms based entirely on my experience, my knowledge, and my ideas of what is good and what isn't. Now, as I said in previous videos, there is, in my opinion, no such thing as a good card or a bad card. It is simply that some cards are more widely useful, some cards have much more specific uses, and some cards have very limited uses. But every card has a counter. Every card has a point at which it is the thing you want. And so when you look at this list, that there are 26 different things here graded from 26 up to 1. The 26 does not mean this is terrible. It simply means it's one of the least widely useful, least adaptable ships, and it might be one of the more niche things that requires lots of building or a particular mission. Now, as I've said the word ships, this is Federation ships, the generics. I'm not going into names. This is just the generic ship classes. So everything from the smallest up to the very biggest, from the NX era up to the TNG films, including the Kelvin timeline. Now, this is, as I said, the generic ships. This is based entirely upon stat line, upgrade bar, action bar in some cases, their durability, their maneuverability, their adaptability. I've tried to keep it to factual rather than putting my own opinions of what I like this ship, so I'm rating it higher. I've tried to be fair in terms of where I think each ship belongs. I will be doing a series of these with the generics of every single faction. Some of them will be very small because there's only 2 ships, in which case I will do a combination video with 3 or 4 small factions inside of one. And in the case of, say, 8472, where there is only 1 ship, congratulations, it's the best generic ship for 8472. So, preamble out of the way, we're going to go through each one. I'm going to flip it over. There is the ship card and the maneuver card, because I believe the maneuver card is just as important as to what makes the ship good or powerful as the actual stats of the ship are. And I will do a brief minute or two talking about each particular ship and why I think it is where it is. So, let's start with, we're going to start with number 26, I'm just going to just getting the angle right so you can see. Right, number 26. So this is, in my opinion, the least versatile, powerful, and overall made of the Federation ships. It is the generic NX class. Now, the reason for this is it's a generic ship. If you're using NXs, you will almost certainly be using the Enterprise and or the Columbia. The generic ship, obviously, it has no named ability because it's generic. It only has one weapon and one crew slot. It can have the enhanced hull plating, brilliant, but because it's neither of the name ships, it has no special ability for it. So it will use it, but that will instantly stop all actions, all red maneuvers. Now, this is not to say it's a bad ship. It's still fairly maneuverable. 2 come about is nice. 3 agility is nice. But also, with only 1 crew and 1 weapon slot, you really can't pack this thing out. And I know from my own personal experience, unless I'm playing an NX era game, I won't bring a generic NX class. So if I'm bringing NXs, I will bring the Enterprise and then the Columbia first. So this comes at number 26. Our next ship, so I'm going to try and sort of power through them so I'm not spending 5 minutes on each ship, because with 26 ships, spending 5 minutes on each ship, this video is going to be huge. The next ship, the Airy class. Now, anyone who knows me will know I'm a fan of the Airy class. However, I'm going entirely based upon its actual abilities and stats rather than my own personal preference. So this is down here because it's tiny. It's not a combat ship. It's got 1 attack dice, 2 hull, 2 shields, 2 evade dice, scan and evade, and double tech. Maneuver dial is really nice. You can go 4 straight forwards, 2 come about, 6 greens, 1 hard turns, no reds. It's a very nice support ship, but apart from the rules, it can operate on its own. Even if it was able to be put down without a carrier ship, since it has a hull of 2, it requires a ship of hull 4 or more to be able to be put down. But even without that rule, it's not a ship that can be played on its own. It does not have anything like the survivability, and obviously no crew slots or weapon slots. So, pure support ship. In 24 is also an Air class, however this is the one that has a tech and a crew slot. It's ever so slightly better because it's got a native crew slot. Now also they look at different points. The Airy class has been repointed, so both of these are now officially 7 points. So the points doesn't matter, but it's that crew slot. Crew slot makes this ship just slightly better for me because you can, Federation especially, you get loads of cool crew. Our next card, we have the original series Constitution class. Now, people might get a bit up in their arms and everything, saying, oh, the Enterprise is amazing, Constitutions are really cool. They are quite nice. 2 crew, 1 weapon, sort of standardish maneuvers. 2 hard turns are nice, 180 firing arc as well. But it's just fragile. And it's got 1 weapon slot, 2 crew slots, so crew is nice. But again, this comes into, probably won't use this unless you're either after a cheap swarm ship, because these are relatively cheap 4 hull ships, or if you want a swarm of tiny ships and big ships, Connies are quite nice. But it's just, there's not an awful lot with it. You know, it's got 6 command durability, only 2 shields, 4 hull, 1 defense dice, and the stuff you'd need to make this into a full-on fighting ship, it's normally not worth it, and you're better off picking a slightly different ship with the better set of abilities or dial. The next is the Miranda class. Now, the Miranda class goes 1 above the Constitution class for a few reasons. Okay, it loses out on attack dice and slots because it only has 1 crew, 1 weapon. However, what makes the Miranda slightly better in my view is that it has 3 hard turns at white rather than red, 2 defense dice, but also it's got 270-degree coverage, a 180 forward firing arc, and a 90 rear, which means as a support ship, this can be, you can put a torpedo on this ship and it's got 270 degrees of coverage. It makes a really nice support torpedo boat. But again, the limited slots, the low survivability means that this is not a ship you're using in large numbers. If you put on Dominion War Retrofit to give this thing 4 hull, 3 shields, then it becomes much nicer. However, this is, that's because it's got a rule for the Mirandas. But the Miranda as it stands is, again, something that you don't use very, very often, if at all, in the generic, unless you have to, or you're gunning for like a small swarm fleet. Because, again, 12 points for a generic ship is really quite nice. Next one, and this pains me to say this, is the Oberth. Now, I'm a massive fan of the Oberth. I would, if this was done on my personal preferences, the Oberth would be top 5. But this is done on actual usefulness in the game, and so therefore it comes in here. Now, this is here because double tech crew. Double tech crew is not bad. It's got a crew slot for Federation stuff, 2 tech for support, 3 agility, which is nice. Only 1 shield, not so good. However, maneuver dial, 6 green maneuvers, and 2 and 3 come abouts at white. So not a red maneuver on the dial. It's amazingly maneuverable at slow speeds. It loses battle stations, which is a big hit against it. But it does have target lock, so it can be used if you can give it a weapon slot somehow. It can be used as a relatively maneuverable torpedo boat. But yes, and the 90-degree firing arc also tends to hamper this thing's combat effectiveness. But as I said, if this was my choice and this was my opinion rather than just on the flat bare bones, this would be top 5 because I just love the Oberth. I will be eventually doing somewhere on this channel. I will be doing Alliance playthroughs from episode 1 all the way through to the end. And I have completed that entire thing with an Oberth class, all the way through to the invasion of Cardassia. For anyone who wants to know, yes, it hurt. Yes, it was a lot of fun. So, number 20. The Sabre class. So the Sabre class is in here. It's a bog standard sort of fighting ship. 2 weapons and 1 crew. So we're getting into that point now where you've got more weapons than crew slots, which this is a warship kind of makes sense, but it means that it's really not that effective. These can be effective in a swarm build if you bring 3, 4, 5 of them and load them up with, it could be Type A upgraded or a set of torpedoes, but it's not amazing in of itself. 2 defense dice is nice, 3 attack, but 90-degree forward arc only, no rear arc. And said no tech slot, only 1 crew. So limited, but again, can be useful. The Akira class. Now this also might get me a bit of funny looks. People go, the Akira is amazing. Okay, 4 attack dice, nice. 2 defense dice, nice. 5 hull, 2 shields, 7 durability. It's come about 3, nice. However, 2 weapons, 1 crew, again. And only a 90-degree forward firing arc. You don't need that many weapons unless you're going for a torpedo boat. If you're going for a torpedo boat, you should be using the name ship, the Spectre, because that gets bonuses for doing that. Again, generic ship, it's just one of those ships you don't bring unless you either have to or you want something relatively cheap and inexpensive. They do quite well in Alliance, but in open play, not so much. In 18 spot is also an Akira. This is one with 3 weapon slots. Now, it's 1 point above the 2 weapon slots because, well, it's exactly the same ship, only with more slots. Yes, it's weapon slots, not a crew or a tech, but with 3 weapon slots, you could put on Type 10 and something else. That's not a bad shout. Or actually, with 3 weapon slots, you could do torpedo, dorsal phaser array, dorsal torpedo array, dorsal phaser array, and torpedo. So this thing could be a 360 gunboat for relatively inexpensively. That's why it comes in 1 point higher. Again, maneuver dart is nice. Come about on a Federation ship is relatively rare. Most of them have reverses or large firing arcs. The no rear firing arc on the Akira, however, also hampers its ability. The Nova class. Now, this Nova class, the generic Nova class, it's a nice ship. 2 attack dice, 2 defense, 3 hull, 2 shields. A crew, weapon, tech. So this is now starting to get to it's a nice all-rounder. The generic Nova class, this is the old version. It should also have a piece of line in it saying that you don't lose your action when you intersect with obstacles. That's a bonus for this thing. It also comes with a rear firing arc, so it's got 90 forward, 90 rear, giving it some potential for fighting both forward and rear to make up for its lack of a comma bout. 2 defense dice, nice, but again, it's that crew weapon tech which I think makes it is the best thing about the Nova and its new generic ability. Nebula class. Now, the Nebula is like a shrunk down galaxy. So this comes at 4 attack, 4 hull, 3 shields. Maneuver dial is okay, same as a Constitution class. Double weapon crew tech. So tech slots, hey, but limited to a 90 forward arc. This is what hampers it mostly. And again, Nebula is used quite often. Sutherland is a massively popular ship. Tacumba sees quite a lot of play, but the generic Nebula just isn't a ship most people use because the maneuvers are nice, but the firing arc is limited, and double weapon is not something you normally need unless you're going for a full-on gunboat. 15 is also a Nebula, but this is the double crew weapon tech. That's a much nicer sort of slot loadout. For a generic ship, that's pretty much the perfect sort of slot loadout you want. It means you can do a bit of everything, and you're leaning into the speciality of the Federation, which is crew upgrades. But again, 90 forward arc limits it. Reverse is nice. Hard turns are red at 3. So there is definitely better. But again, these are not bad. You will never have a bad day if you bring a Nebula. It's just you might have to work harder to make it super powerful. Next one is the Defiant. Now, the Defiant, again, people will hopefully have a different opinion of this. This comes in here, sort of middle of the pack. It's nice. 3 attack, 3 hull, 3 shields, 2 defense dice, double weapon crew tech, which you might think is nice for a fighting ship. It has a rear firing arc, however. This is what makes it better than the Sabre and the Nebula. It's got a rear firing arc. Yes, only 3 dice, but it's more maneuverable with, white turns at 3 and 2. Come about is the only red maneuver at 3. Got 3 shields and 3 hulls, so 6 durability with 2 defense dice means that it's probably going to survive at least 1 hit. Double weapon is nice, and also at 3 attack dice, it means it's perfectly possible for Type A and upgraded to go on here. There's also several Defiant specific upgrades which make the Defiant a lot better. 13 space is the Constitution class refit. Now, this says Constitution class. This is the original one. There are 2 different versions of the Constitution class refit. I'll reveal the other one now. These are 13 and 12 for the same reason the Nebula is next to each other. Exactly the same ship, same maneuver dial, same points. It should be 18 now. However, triple crew weapon, double crew weapon tech. Adding the tech slot put this point 1 above. Now, the Connie refit is why you ask. It's much, much, much higher than the original Constitution. More slots. Either in the either an extra crew slot for this and an extra tech slot for the second one. Also 3 shields, not 2, and 6 green maneuvers. It gains those 2 banks at green, which makes this thing a lot more maneuverable. 180 forward firing arc is still a thing. No rear firing arc, however. So you're relying on those green maneuvers to be able to bank you around to keep the enemy inside firing arc. Now, this is the point where I think this is the point at which I start thinking, okay, I might want to run the generic ship over a named ship, or alongside. The Constitution class refits, the named ones are the Enterprise and the Enterprise A. And both of those are nice. Neither one of them is hugely powerful or game-breakingly good. So, if I'm going for an era game, I might want a generic Constitution class refit, double crew weapon tech, and upgrade it that way. Save me some points off the named ability and build it up like that. So I said, now we're getting into the point where I would bring them some of the time. So everything before this point, everything before sort of 14, so the top 2 lines are ships I will only bring along, when I either have to, or if I've only got a small budget, or if it's a particular mission. This next few are ones that I will bring along sometimes just because it'll be quite good. There are other options, but this will make a good solid choice. I don't have to be forced or find a specific mission to bring a Defiant class, for example. And for example, everywhere that I would bring a Saber, the first thing I would think is, can I do a Defiant instead? Because the Defiant is just a more powerful Saber class. It's got a tech slot, which it doesn't have. It's got a rear firing arc, which this doesn't have. It's got a bonus shield, which this doesn't have. So, and the first thing I will look at, go, right, I need a small offensive Federation ship. Defiant. If the Defiant doesn't work for whatever reason, or I need it slightly cheaper, then I'll look at a Saber. Our next ship is the Delta Flyer. Now, some people will be very, very angry at this. The Delta Flyer is an amazing ship. However, it's very much a subject of the named ships are so powerful, you would never bring a generic Delta Flyer. Unless you either have a massive game where you want every ship only by a Delta Flyer and you've used up both the Delta Flyer and the Delta Flyer Mark II. So unless you wanted a third Delta Flyer class on the battlefield, you would not bring this one. If you want two Delta Flyers, you bring the Delta Flyer 2. If you want one, you bring a name ship as well. Now, maneuver dial's really nice. Again, 6 green maneuvers, 1 and 2 hard turns, 1 and 2 come-abouts. No battle stations does hurt it, but forward and rear firing arc, nice. Tech weapon crew for the slot loadout, again, nice. 11 points, nice. It does require you obviously to have a carrier ship, so this makes it a nice. This is more like a heavy fighter than a support ship. Unlike the Airy class, which is very much a support ship, then this would be, this is very much a fighting ship rather than a support ship. I would also say here, I have neglected, I believe, to put in the Federation Type 11 shuttlecraft, which will be down here, level with the Airy class at 25, so push everything up by 1. I've just remembered I have forgotten to bring the generic of the Sakharov. So, 10th space goes to the Federation generic attack fighters. Now, attack fighters are amazing. They've got nice maneuver dial, same as the Delta Flyer, in fact. Evade, target lock, 20 points, but then again, they are massively powerful. The reason why they're so low, even though they're a fighter squadron, for the Federation fighters in particular, is there's 3 other named Federation fighters. So if you're bringing Federation fighters, you'd bring a named set, because that just gives you an additional upgrade, like an additional token, which usually has a better stat line, an additional upgrade slot, and named ability. It's always better to bring a named ship rather than a generic. And again, unless, like the Delta Fly, you're going to be bringing 4 fighter squadrons, then you bring then you bring the generic of these. But 4 tokens, very nice. The attack fighters fundamentally said have multiple uses of cheat death. You kill a token, you get the next one. You kill the token, you get the next one. But again, you wouldn't bring the generic unless you had no option or you run out of names. Our next ship is the Intrepid. Now, the Intrepid is in here for a bit of a strange reason. The maneuver dial is okay. My problem with it is there's no one straight forwards. There's 1 bank or 2 or 3 straight. Now, there's no red, nice, but no reverse and no come about. So it's actually not amazingly maneuverable. It's massively fast, and it has a forward and a rear firing arc. And 4244 is a brilliant stat line. Double weapon, crew tech, that's okay. But it's the lack of either a come about or a reverse, and the lack of a one straight. It's a weird maneuver dial, and you have to really work it to make this thing maneuverable. Bonus maneuvers, things that increase or decrease speed, so you can be a bit more flexible. Yes, it can go 4, 5, 6 straight forwards, but that's basically just putting the pedal to the metal. That's first turn moving into combat. So it's nice, but it's definitely not amazing. It's up here in 9th spot because stat line is brilliant, upgrade bar is not bad, it's got a forward and rear firing arc, and it's just a good solid ship. And also 8 durability with 2 evade dice. Again, you're going to live through a bit. As you could probably gather, 8 slot is the other Intrepid, but this is double crew weapon tech. The only reason it's better is because 2 crew is better for the Federation. Again, all the same things apply for the Intrepids. It's, you know, maneuver dial is a bit weird. The next ship we have is in 7th spot, the Kelvin Constitution class. Now, this ship is a bit of an outlier because obviously it's a Constitution class, it's a Kirk era, but it's got the firepower of something much bigger. Now, 4 attack dice, 6 hull, 3 shield, combine 9 durability with a forward 180 and a rear 90, so 270-degree coverage and 9 durability. It also can go 6 straight forward as a red, 6 green maneuvers, only has 2 hard turns and a 2 reverse. It's a nice ship, and actually this is, I think, the only one where you would more often than not bring the generic over the names, just because most of the cool stuff about this is about the ship stats and rather than the named abilities. The Enterprise and Enterprise A from the Kelvin named abilities are not amazing. So this is one of the ones where you'd bring the generic over this, over the name ship. Now, very, very good ship, solid ship. You know, 24 points. It's nice. 2 crew weapon tech. No problem with that. Good, solid ship. Now, that said, this is now this point upwards, sort of 7, 6 upwards, are ones that the generic ship will serve you extremely well. The Galaxy class. This is triple crew weapon. The Galaxy class is in here, as you may have heard in several other videos. The Galaxy class is, I think, probably the best one of the best all-rounders. So one of the best all-rounders in the game. 4 attack dice, 1 defense dice, 8 durability. You know, maneuver dial is nice. 2 different reverse gears, 3 hard turns are red. Can go 5 straight forwards. It's got 5 green maneuvers with a 2 and a 3. Rear firing arc 90 as well as the forward 90. There's a lot of good stuff there. The next one is the same Galaxy class, only it's got a tech slot. Tech slot it gives you much more durability. It means you can put bonus stuff on this. It's got bonus shields. You can put extra stuff in here. It makes it just more well-rounded. Top 4. We have the Sovereign. Now, the Sovereign, the first 5 attack dice ship that isn't a fighter squadron. So 5 attack, 9 durability. So basically, it's a Galaxy, but more. It's a more powerful Galaxy class. It's got more maneuvers, so it's got better maneuvers. So again, 3 hard turns are now white rather than red. It's gained a 6 straight forwards, but that is a red. It's lost the 2 reverse, so it's ever so slightly faster going forwards and more manoeuvrable at the slower speeds. Same upgrade bar as the better Galaxy, but 1 more attack dice and keeps the rear firing arc. Brilliant. We have the Prometheus class, which is a bit like it's like a combination of a Sovereign and an Intrepid. So 4 hull, 4 shields, nice. 8 durability, 1 defense dice, but 5 attack, same as a Sovereign. Now, this gets, the only red is the reverse. It only has a 1 straight forward. It has no 1 banks, but it gets its 2 banks at green and a 2 straight, the whole line of 3s, and a 4 bank maneuver. Now, the 4 bank maneuver is extremely rare. Only a handful of ships in the game have it. That isn't something that makes it super, super powerful, but it means it has more options than some other ships might have. And also, forward and rear firing arc is nice, but also double tech, double weapon crew. There's a lot of slots on the generic Prometheus, which means that you can load it up quite spectacularly. Number 2. The other Prometheus. However, this is the double tech, double crew weapon. So that leans into, it's almost the perfect ship in terms of Federation. It's got more tech slots, more crew slots. Again, all the same stuff applies. Relatively good maneuvers. It's the slow maneuvers it doesn't handle so well, but again, things that can modify maneuvers are relatively easy to get, and it's quite a potent attacker. Now Number 1. Because I haven't said it yet, anyone who's been paying attention and knows the Federation ships will know what I've put in the number 1 slot. I have a reason for it, and it's basically because the Excelsior. It is, I think, the most customizable, well-rounded ship in the Federation fleet. So, why do I say this? 8 durability, so same as a Prometheus, same as a Galaxy, same as an Intrepid. 1 defense dice, that's standard for most Federation ships. Only 3 attack dice, again, not amazing. However, double crew weapon tech, that's a lot. Full action bar. Maneuver dial isn't amazing. Hard turns at 2 and 3 are both red, and a 2 come about is red. However, the Excelsior has 180 forward firing arc and the 90 rear, so it's almost impossible to stay out of its arc. It's relatively inexpensive, and it's just the most customizable. You can put anything you like on this. It's low enough in weapon value that it can have Type 8, Type 10 and upgraded if you can put more weapon slots on board. The crew slots it's got enables it to have enough stuff to boost its attack power, its abilities, its maneuvers. You don't have to worry about the maneuvers if you don't want. It's got a massive firing arc for you to use as a gunboat. It's tanky enough to be a frontline fighter and withstand a couple of good hits. There's an Excelsior specific upgrade, which is the flyer apart then, which makes this thing even powerful. It gets a bigger bonus from the Dominion retrofit, same as the Miranda and the Galaxy, which makes it even more tanky. And it's just the best sort of all-rounder ship. The Galaxy is 1 more attack dice, but you lose the bigger firing arc, and I think the firing arc is one of the big things. Generally, if you've got a bad maneuver dial or lots of red on the maneuver dial, you've got massive firing arc to make up for it. The Excelsior really should never need to do a red maneuver. With 270 degree of coverage, and the middle sort of like block of 9, the one banks, 1 straight, 2 straight, 2 banks, 3 straight, 3 banks, it should be able to have a shot pretty much every single turn. And even if it doesn't, with a combined 8, it's tanky enough to be able to survive a hit. That's the same as the Galaxy, the Prometheus, the Sovereign, and everything. So that is my crowned king, as it were. So whole board just here. Now, you will have, I very much hope, different views. I hope that everybody has a different idea. Some people might say, well, the Kelvin Connie is the best. And I could see the Kelvin Connie making a play for number 1, swapping it in the Excelsior. Because, obviously, the Kelvin Connie is like an Excelsior done in a modern day. You get the same firing arcs, you get more attack dice, you're more tanky, you've got a better maneuver dial. However, Kelvin timeline is a bit of an anomaly. And also then there's some Kelvin timeline specific upgrades which make that thing even more powerful. But again, it doesn't sit there for me. It sits a little bit low down. It's still amazing, but the thing is that the Excelsior is one of those ones where it's always a toss up. You go, right, I want to bring you want to bring a ship, Excelsior is usually one of the very first ships that comes up with right, I'm looking to build an offensive ship. Excelsior can do that because you can either put it in with high dice torpedoes and it's got massive firing arcs for them. You can throw on an improved phasers or load up weapon slots relatively cheaply and throw in Type 8, Type 10 and upgrade it, and you've got 6 dice with a 180 forward firing arc. Brilliant. You want something that's tanky, 8 durability, special abilities from Dominion retrofit. The ability to absorb damage instead of taking orc power tokens with flyer apart. There is not any job that you can think of in the Federation, the Excelsior can be made to do it. I say be made to do it, can do it with a handful of upgrades. Some ships can do it better. Some ships, however, that ship will be less good at other things. So the Sovereign moves faster. Okay. But it lacks the firing arc of the Excelsior. The Akira's got more weapon slots. You want to be a torpedo gunboat, better off using Akira. Massively lower on the maneuver dial, and also, only 2 shields, which means that you're going to start taking hull damage quite quickly. Federation like having more shields. So you might think that, the Intrepid, the Prometheus, the Sovereign are better because they've got the 4 shields. However, I think just everything that comes together, combined 8 durability, nice upgrade slot loadout, best sort of options in terms of upgrades. 3 attack dice is the perfect level because it means that it's infinite, it's perfectly upgradable to the maximum, but also it means that you're not relying on secondary weapons. Things like the Miranda, the Oberth, 2 attack dice ships, the Nova. Realistically, you're relying on them bringing weapon cards because their main attack dice is just pathetic. 3 is the mid ground where you're going. 3 is nice because you can upgrade it up to 6, but also with range bonuses, 4 dice is not a bad thing to throw at someone if you just want to roll some dice. 4 is nicer, 5 is the best, but obviously when you get to the higher numbers, it's harder to upgrade. 3 is that point at which you can upgrade it massively, or you can ignore it entirely, and it's never a bad choice. When you've got 5 attack dice, realistically, you don't want to spend points on weapon cards, which means the weapon slots the Prometheus and the Sovereign have usually aren't used. Because when you've got 5 dice, you're going to be wanting to fire that, because otherwise, if you're not going to be firing the main weapon, and you're bringing a weapon card, you might as well bring a cheaper ship, save yourself some points. Whereas, so with 3 dice, it's that middle ground of you could be a prime weapon attacker, you could be a weapon card attacker. Neither of them is a bad idea. So, that last little bit was a bit of a ramble. So, I hope you've enjoyed this. I will be doing more of these. They're going to come out rather more infrequently, just because they take longer for me to set up. Because this is something I have to sit down and go through and work out where I'm going and plan them all out beforehand, and then come and talk to you about it. Whereas with my builds, I just let the ideas flow. I don't have a script for the ship ideas and the fleet builds. I just have a bit of a chat about, here's what it is, this is what we can put on, this is this, this is that. So, thank you very much for listening to me. I said this goes out 1st of June, David's Day. If you are already a member, then I'm sure you know there will be an announcement on the Discord server at some point today. If you are not a member of the Fremont Reformation, I urge you to come and join us in the celebrations of a very great man who was taken from us far, far too early. He did teach me a lot about the game. As a teacher himself and as a teacher myself, there was lots of stuff that we were able to sort of like communicate and talk about learning and how it's best, to encourage people to join in and that sort of thing. Great inspiration to me, and I know to everybody else that was in the Discord server from the beginning. So this video is dedicated to him. There will be a link. There is already a link in my page description to his page, Brush Up Your Game. All the videos that he did are still there. He does his own rankums with several members of the community, as well as a load of other videos. So I urge you to go and watch them. The advice he gives is still just as relevant today as it was when it was first recorded. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.